But we didn't.
Good afternoon. Please take your seats. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. First, I want to start by thanking Leisure World and you all for hosting us today, and also welcome our friends that are doing this in Riderwood, as well as this is a hybrid meeting, so we have some friends that are online. Also want to thank our folks from the TEDS and meeting, that's our IT department, and our public information office for helping put this together. So this afternoon, you're going to hear from the county executive to talk about the FY26 budget. And we will take some questions after he makes a short presentation. If you could please raise your hand, we'll have microphones. We can walk around that way. Everyone in the room can hear you, as well as the folks that are in Riderwood and are online listening to today. We also will be taking questions ahead of time online. So if you are joining us today online, you can type them into the side and someone will be reading those out. On your chairs today, you have a glossary term that'll help you with some of the terms if you don't understand them. I don't understand them sometimes. And then if you want to get in touch with Mr. Elridge, there's a great information card here with his contact information, as well as some other details on the county executive's office and the budget. So without further ado, I will introduce our county executive, Mark Elridge. Thank you.
So how is everybody today? Good. So I'm going to give you kind of an introduction to the county budget, just so you can see where money comes from, where money goes, and kind of some of the challenges we have as we're putting together this budget now. We're continuing what's been my practice in terms of budget meetings. We go out to the community before we do the budget, and we do these listening sessions. When I came into office, listening sessions were after the budget was already done, which is not as useful as getting an opportunity to talk to people now. So I'm happy to do this. They've been running 11 of them this year. I think I'm already halfway through that pile. So we're out there in the community, and we kind of do the same basic presentation. I'm going to use this to point the slides when I need to point the slides. I will say that I'm fascinated by the buttons, so you may find me just tapping the button and then random red lights going up. But the only time that is when I'm pointing up here. So where do we start? There we go. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the county has two different budgets. It's got an operating budget and it's got a capital budget. And the capital budget, which is not a big deal this year because it's the off year, is all the things that we build. It's all for capital projects: roads, bridges, schools, senior centers, pools, roads, all that stuff. Anything that's hard, concrete, built in place, that's a capital item. And the rest of the budget is the operating budget. That's the services we provide to the county. So anything anybody does on behalf of the county is being paid for out of the operating budget. You can see all the departments, I don't think we left anything else. Basically, anything we do with human beings winds up in the operating budget. So in FY25, our approved revenues were $7,092 million. And the revenues came from, first, the property tax, $2,285, almost $286 million. Then the income tax, which is $2,051 million. Then there's this thing called intergovernmental transfer, and that's transfers between Maryland State and the federal government and the county. So we get a lot of money from the schools in the state of Maryland. We get money for transportation projects in the state of Maryland. All that money winds up in this pool of money. Then there's charges for services. If the county's doing something, and it's a service, whether it's people come in for permits and things like that, those are all service or revenue generators. That money winds up over there. Any other taxes we have, smaller than the property tax and income tax are over here, 327 million. Fines and miscellaneous, every time you get a parking ticket, you're supporting the county, we thank you. That's $246 million. You can take this as like your contribution to social services. And transfer and recordation tax is the last big item, and that's $162 million. Transfer and recordation taxes are what people pay when property is bought and sold. So when the property is transferred, there's a tax on the transfer. And then when you have to record the new deed with the new debt, there's a fee that gets attached to the recordation. That's why it's called transfer and recordation. It's the most volatile one because it totally depends on the sale of homes and the sale of commercial property. So when markets are down, these numbers are down. The markets are up, these numbers are up. This is our approved expenditures. And if you look at broadly, it's Montgomery County Public Schools, $303.3 billion. And Montgomery College, $334 million. So combined, it's like 3.6, almost 3.7 billion, which is more than half of our total budget. The next big piece out of the budget is public safety. That's police and fire and the jail and the sheriff's office and all the things that relate to public safety. Then the next big chunk of money goes to health and human services, $511 million. That's all your senior programs, all your youth programming, all the food programs the county runs, all the things that you would think of as social services. They're coming out of this part of the government. Then the general government, just the general cost of running things is $396 million. Transportation is $286 million. Environment is $200 million. Grants, insurance, and EITC, earned income tax credit. That's a program the county piggybacks onto a state program, which is part of the federal program, which provides income to low-income households in the county. After this is libraries, culture, and recreation. It's about $129 million. Then there's housing directly. We put in about $130 million. Doesn't include bond funding. We have floated bonds to build buildings, but this is just the operating money for the housing department. The OPEB contribution is employee retirement benefits, and this is a little over $100 million. And this is made up of two pieces. One is every year, anybody here retired county employee getting a health benefit? Okay, usually there are people in here who are retired county employees. So if you're a retired county employee getting the health benefit, that's paid for out of current year taxes. The county is also putting away a lot of money to pay for a benefit that somebody will get 15 years from now. And it's not designed, it's going into a fund which has billions of dollars in it. The fund sits there, it doesn't do anything. And the hope is that 15 years from now, it'll have enough interest generated by it and profit and dividends and things that it'll pay for the current, what you're now paying for every year. They'll be able to pay for it off the interest that the fund makes. I'm not a fan of this because it's making it so that we're paying the price for retirement so that other people don't pay it all for retirement. And it's cutting into the things you can do in the county. So every time we put $15 or $50 million into this fund, that's that much money that we can otherwise spend on things that people need every year that we're not able to do. And like I said, I don't think it makes sense. We're legally required to have targets, but we don't need the targets we have right now. And these are the operating expenses. It's about $80 million. Parking planning, $206 million. And then debt service is $480 million. And debt service got larger starting when Ike was executive because interest rates were close to 2%. We could borrow money very cheaply. So we were able to build more projects on cheaper money than if we had waited. So to do an analysis, if you look at the inflation every year, the cost of delaying a project, it was cheaper to pay the interest than it was to try to absorb the inflation that was going up every year. So I was able to do a lot of work with rec centers in the county, and schools in the county. We made a lot of progress. Recently, this has not been so good because the interest rates went through the ceiling, at least at the current ceiling. Anybody old enough to remember the 70s remembers when mortgages were hitting close to 20%. So we never got there. Trump is totally wrong that this is the worst inflation because we have seen worse than that. And it's seen it a while, but that's where the money. That's how it's affected the housing market. We kind of brought it down. A lot of people aren't buying and selling as much, and that put a dent on the transfer and recreation tax, which I talked about on the other side. The other bit of money, that isn't a bit of money, we put a little bit of capital into the capital, a little bit of money, cash money into the capital budget, so we don't borrow as much. This is kind of a simplified chart to give you a more global view of the county. So this is the school systems, OCPS and the college. That's public safety. That's everything else we do in terms of services. So that's a small piece, it's not even a quarter of what we spend. And then that's the debt service. And you can see there's OPEB again, and there's paying again. So the big part of this county, over $3 billion of this money is winding up in the school system and public safety. So what are the challenges we have this year? Well, the first one is blueprint funding. Anybody know what the blueprint is? Some of you have heard of it. Some of you don't. The blueprint's the statewide plan for funding the school systems in the entire state and dealing with a lot of the inequality across different jurisdictions. You can imagine school systems are funded largely by property taxes. The ability of a county like Garrett County or some of the western and eastern shore counties to fund things is far less than it is for a place like Montgomery County, Howard County. So there are disparities in the state, and there are things that the state wants all the school systems to do. The big example of that is by 2026, all school systems have to have starting pay of $60,000 for teachers. So when I raised taxes a couple of years ago, because the school system put in a huge jump in pay to get them close to 60, our teachers didn't qualify for moderately priced schooling in Montgomery County because their incomes were so low. So if you're a teacher, you couldn't even get subsidized housing, which is kind of a pathetic commentary on how we treat teachers. But the blueprint has a lot of requirements. A lot of the jurisdictions are realizing they're not going to have the money to meet these requirements. It's a lot of pressure on us, but also the state has no money to contribute what was supposed to be their share. The legislature is probably going to spend a lot of time this year talking about how to modify the blueprint so people can actually afford to pay for it. But that's going to be a pretty big discussion. We have constrained resources. The only things we can tax are basically income and property. Those are the two big taxes in Montgomery County. We get no piggyback on commercial property. Like you get a piggyback on, when you pay your income taxes, they get a piggyback on your income taxes. There's no piggyback on commercial income. And unlike Virginia, we don't have the tax, you have no taxes on businesses in Montgomery County. Virginia has one tax on businesses, their gross receipts tax, and it's Fairfax County, $200 million a year in revenue. Montgomery has nothing equivalent to what Fairfax County has. And the other North Virginia counties have that too. So our resources are limited, and they just got worse because the state had their economic forecast. They're presenting that their income, their total revenue is only going to go up by 1%. That's obviously not going to cover inflation at the state level. So they have no transportation money. So they've told us no transportation money, no money for planning. With 1% increase is pretty much no money for anything. And we're all going to have a harder time because we're not going to get the state revenues that we got before. The things are legally mandated to do, the stuff they're not legally mandated to. We expect to see cuts in during this year. So that's going to be a creative problem for us. Infrastructure demands. We have aging streets, we have aging bridges, we have aging schools. Like everything else, everything is aging. We're aging, stuff's aging. And you guys, it takes more to take care of you. When you get older, it takes more to take care of the buildings and the buildings get old. And so we're dealing with having to renovate and bring buildings up to modern standards, modern specs, trying to make them energy efficient so they can consume less energy and don't cost as much to operate. But that's definitely a budget pressure because we can't walk away from the schools we need to build, from the community centers we need to build, from the bridges we need to fix. These are all things we have to figure out how we're going to fit in the budget. We've been dealing with inflation and financial market conditions. Inflation's been a detriment and it's cost us in a couple of quarters. Everything we pay for it costs money. And so it increased inflation has been higher than our increases in revenue. So now that it's finally coming down, that's the benefit. All those recognition and transfer taxes got knocked out as home sales died in Montgomery County. They're starting to come back with lower interest rates. So this year coming up, this budget is for July 1, starting in 2025 through June 30th. That should see healthier revenues. Whether we see healthier revenues in the rest of this fiscal year, which ends this June 30th, remains to be seen. But there's some belief we should see some uptick in that. Maintenance of effort, the county has to maintain per student costs in the school system, so you have to adjust for inflation and increases in class size, or increases in the student body. And so as the student number goes, we have to continue to maintain the same per pupil spending as we maintained the previous year. And again, I've talked about real estate volatility and recordation and transfer taxes. And the last thing is just recruitment and retention challenges. A lot of people did not come back from work. A lot of people decided they're not coming back unless they get paid better. A lot of our workforce that's female, and that's not because it should be, but that's just the way the gender divide has worked historically. There are women who are not coming back from work because they cannot afford childcare. If you have 2 kids, the cost of childcare is about $50,000 a year. There are a lot of people who don't make that much in their jobs, and so people are staying out of work until their kids are old enough to go to school. That's impacting jobs in Montgomery County, and it impacts obviously income taxes in Montgomery County. So those are downward pressures and real issues that we have to deal with. This gives you an idea of how volatile transfer and recordation taxes. So for years, they're kind of going along the straight line, a little bit up, sometimes a little bit down, and then it's spiked over here. And the council did a huge giveaway to a bunch of developers. Made it so they didn't have to pay taxes if they were building on top of the metro. So that money that we lost, the impact taxes we lost, came out of projects that we had built in Montgomery County. So in order to make up for what they gave away over here, they raised taxes on recognition, transfer taxes in Montgomery County. But despite all that, when the interest rates peaked, recordation taxes tanked that far. So for us last year, it was about $75 million difference in what we should have had and what we got. And so our budget last year would have been healthier. We expect it to be a little bit healthier this year, and maybe fully healthy in the year to come that we're planning for now. But you can see how much of a drop that was in revenue. That's a significant amount of money. Next. This is where we've been on adjusting our per pupil spending since 2001 to 2025. The gray line, these two, are all money, county money and state money. And so you can see back in 2010, we were spending $22,815 per pupil. Today, we're spending $20,639 per pupil. That's adjusted for inflation. So we're not able to pay for what we were paying for 12 years ago, 14 years ago. This is just the county's line, the solid grade line. And we peaked at 16,000 back then. We're getting our way back up in actual dollars up to here. But actual dollars is different than inflated dollars. And this is pure county money. The blue line is county money. We're at 13,000 now. We were at 16,000 And so we were, we were a little bit lower than that, and adjusted for inflation, we would be higher than we are now. So we've basically not been able to keep up with spending in the schools. Next. So this is per pupil spending by county. We used to spend the most per pupil in the state. Now it's Baltimore City, Howard County, Shorters County, Montgomery County there, Anne Arundel and Baltimore County there. So we've dropped in terms of what we spend compared to the rest of the state. And I'm not going to try to make this all up in 1 year because it's too much money to make up in 1 year. This is the money we have in our budget for infrastructure. This is in the capital budget. This is what we bond. We issue bonds every year. You pay for things and you pay for like buying a house. You're buying a rec center. You pay for the rec center of a 20 or 30-year bond. And so we go out and float bonds to pay for our big capital projects. But we were at 300 million back when I was on the council. We actually peaked at 340 or something like that. We're down to, we've been spending a level $280 million a year for 7 years. So do the math with inflation. What you bought 7 years ago for $280 million is not what you're able to buy today for $280 million. And so we're actually buying less with the money we're putting out there. If we adjusted ourselves for inflation, we'd be from here, we would have been up around $500 million. If we just adjust ourselves from the 280 we were at, we would have been closer to 340 or more right now. So we're losing ground even though we're spending a lot of money. So one of the things I've been focused on, and I've been trying to do this for a couple of years, is restructure the tax system we're having now. We have a system that, came basically out of property taxes developed in the 40s and 50s. And we benefited from lots of residential growth after 1960, after DC integrated its schools, and a bunch of people left DC because they weren't going to live in a place with integrated schools. And Montgomery County seemed like a safe bet because in 1960, almost every branch of the county had racial covenants and anti-Jewish covenants, so you could not buy or rent in Montgomery County if you were black or Jewish. So in the 1960s, it seemed like a safe bet that you could come to Montgomery County if you didn't want to see other people. In 1967, we passed the Fair Housing Law, and the covenants were removed. They cannot enforce the covenants. And so even though your deed has deed restrictions saying you can't sell to a black person or a Jew, those are gone. And so you have to sell to everybody. So our county effectively integrated in the 60s. But during this time of lots of house construction, home construction, we were able to build probably the best schools and best infrastructure that anybody had in the region. And we were pretty proud of it. Montgomery County's mature and developed place now. And to maintain our competitive edge, we have to have a model community, but we have to be able to invest in our schools. We've got to be able to invest in modernizing our transportation system, which has definitely not been modernized. And we need to, have an infrastructure in this county that reflects that we're actually in the 21st century now. Communities like Northern Virginia figured this out. If we go back to about 2010 and 2012, Northern Virginia began shifting their tax burden off of residential to commercial property. DC did the same thing. I'll show you some charts so you can see what the numbers actually are. But they made serious decisions to make sure the commercial property paid for the infrastructure that then spurred further development. And I think we'll go to that now. So these are 3 charts, and they come out of a study done in the District of Columbia. These are not my numbers, these are their numbers. And if you start over here in the District of Columbia, commercial property is taxed at $1.89 if it's worth more than $10 million. If it's worth between $5 and $10 million, it's taxed at $1.60. Then it gets down to $1.04, which is basically where we're coming down to. Residential tax rate is 85 cents. These are 85 cents because these were $1.89. You get the money from someplace. In DC, you go downtown, you can see all those buildings in DC. Any of those buildings worth more than $10 million, and they're getting taxed at a rate that is, our rate is $1.15 if you include the state tax. So their rate is 74 cents higher than Montgomery County's tax rate. If you go to Fairfax County, their commercial property tax is, both commercial and residential wind up at about $1.20. And then they have special taxing districts. So if you're developing Tyson's Corner, where everybody says they go, they're paying $1.51 in Tyson's Corner. So nobody's running Tyson's Corner because they're a low tax district. They also have that BPOL tax, that $200 million I mentioned earlier, all coming from commercial property. Montgomery has nothing like that. And this is Montgomery County, including the state tax, we're at $1.15. All this money goes all to Fairfax County. We get $1.04 with $1.15. So 11 of it goes to the state, $1.04 goes to Montgomery County. So we are way undertaxed compared to either of the jurisdictions closest to us. And people wonder why are people going to Fairfax County? And that's because the developers in Fairfax County actually asked the legislature to let the counties tax them so they could build infrastructure. The caveat was pretty straightforward. Can't use money for schools, can't feed hungry people, can't provide medical care to people, but you can build infrastructure that'll spur development, which is either, subway line, bus rapid transit, or more roads. And that's what they did. In 2012, they finally pulled it off in Fairfax County, with Northern Virginia County given the ability to tax commercial property separate from residential property at a much higher rate. The Republican governor wrote an editorial in the Washington Post talking about how this was going to lead to the growth of businesses in Tyson's Corner and the explosion of commercial real estate property values in Northern Virginia. He was right. What did Montgomery County do? Dithered. This whole time. I was on the council. People would be like, well, we spend money, then the state never spend money. So we went on to the worst of all worlds. We didn't spend any, the state didn't spend any money. So we built nothing. Nothing. The purple line alone is taken, by the time they get this thing done, it'll be 14 years to develop something that is the most expensive light rail line probably in the world per mile. So it's an accomplishment. A lot of really good, it's an accomplishment. These put our tax burden relative to the other jurisdictions. This is on commercial property. This is a small corporation. This is a large corporation. Both columns are true in the same data. The most expensive place to develop is Washington. Next is Alexandria. Next is Arlington County. Next is Fairfax County. Next is Prince George's County. At the bottom is Montgomery County. Again, all this stuff comes from the District of Columbia. This is their study, not my study. And DC this is for the big companies. DC winds up the most expensive place. We wind up as the least most expensive place. So anytime somebody tries to sell you some story about other Northern Virginia, taxes are low. That's not true. The income taxes are in Virginia, but if you're a developer building your building, the tax in your building is way higher than it is over here. And they've made it work. Montgomery County does have a tax, it's called an impact tax. You only pay it when you build. It's a one-time payment. You can't float a bond against it because a bond wants you to see 30 years of revenue. And you only get it for the building when it's built, and you get 1 year of revenue. If you have a taxing district like they do in Virginia, the whole district is paying a small tax to pay for the capital project, and they pay it out over 20 or 30 years, which is what we want to do over here. Create these districts and commercial property pay into paying down the bonds over a 30-year period, which makes it a much smaller tax than trying to take all the money from them on the front side. It spreads it out with all the commercial businesses, which benefit from the bringing in more transportation and making the place more accessible. Everybody benefits. And it's something that makes it fair for county taxpayers. And my goal is to shift some of this load off of residential property and shift some more of it back on the commercial property, because they're the ones that benefit. And you go in and you invest, and people get to build 200, 300-foot tall buildings where they used to have 1 or 2 story shops. Without lifting a finger, their property became valuable. And the folks who don't like this will say, oh, well, but the your homeowners benefit because your property becomes more valuable. That's only good if you're done on selling your property. But if you want to live in your property for another 20 years, it just means you're paying higher taxes and not getting the benefit the private sector folks are getting. So we would like to have a fairer system in this county. So at this point now, this is your turn. Ask me a question. What do you want to know about? I've got a lot of staff here. We'll answer as much as we can. There are 2 people coming out with mics. The rule is we hold mics. Because something might go off on a rant. I've never seen that happen before, but so it's our way of having some control over the mic. Thank you.
Okay, so I guess I'm a little confused because I've lived in Montgomery County now for almost 40 years. And I was always under the impression that the reason that Fairfax County grew commercially was because somehow it was more friendly to businesses. And what you have just said just so totally implodes my theory here. And so if the opposite is true, how did that happen? And I mean, why would people go there to pay more taxes when they can come to lovely Montgomery County for less? What did we do wrong?
So this is a good question, but it's a question I've been asking. I sat on the council for 12 years, and Steve Silver, I do not like, I'll leave one. But he used to be Ike's economic development person. He would come and say, you've got 10 million square feet of vacant Class A and Class B. You don't need to zone stuff when you're not even moving the property you have. And the issue is, well, the issue is investment in infrastructure. When Virginia was struggling about like England, Tyson's Corner was just, the only difference between Tyson's and us, there's 2 crappy shopping centers in one place instead of 1. And if you go to Tyson's Corner now, you see Tyson's Corner is completely transformed into a business center. They knew if they could provide the transportation and get people into their equivalent of their downtowns, they would see more economic activity and it would build on itself. And Montgomery County didn't see that. Our planning board focused on basically just zoning everything for high rises. And assuming that if you had zoned property for high rises, the businesses would just come there. But the businesses weren't going to come there if you didn't have an adequate transportation network. All of us knew, because there are multiple studies done for the DC region that said the biggest impediment to economic development is the lack of transportation. Yes, we've got the red line, but the red line basically ferries people from suburban Maryland into jobs in DC. There are almost no jobs, for example, on this side of the red line. Where are you going to go to work? Discovery Center's closed in Silver Spring, so there's a sprinkling of businesses, mostly retail. There's some businesses in Silver Spring, not the huge, major corporate presence there. You go into DC. So the line was not meant to serve Montgomery County, it was meant to serve the District of Columbia. And frankly, the white residents who left DC wanted to go back to DC to work. That's what they built for. And so we got a very different, deal on it. Virginia's lines are very close. We have multiple lines in North Virginia. They're very close to downtown Washington, even if they were next to DC. They were actually technically closer because you got to cross the river to get to DC. But the distance from suburban Maryland to downtown DC and the job corridor is way different than the difference from Virginia, where you can just hop over in 1 or 2 metro stops inside DC. You're in the heart of that. Then they got the airport, 2 of them. Right, one in Fairfax and one over to Alexandria. They have 2 airports, and if you go out to the Fairfax airport, Route 66 is lined with major businesses because they had all this empty land between the airport and suburban Fairfax, and they just filled it in and attracted people because to the airport, which weren't, but we don't have an airport. So you can find a lot of different things that were different. But the controllable thing was we could have kept pace on transit. We could have gotten ahead of it. When I came on the council in 2008, I guess, I proposed building a bus rapid transit system in the county. Dedicated lanes, north, south, east, west, adding to everybody going. Our flow traffic flow, by the way, is north to south in the morning, south to north in the evening, east to west in the morning, west to east in the evening. So we designed a bus system that would be in its own lane, so it would be able to move people. I was trying to get ahead of Virginia. I could not get the council to do it. And I couldn't get the planning board. It took years to get it into the master plan. Now it's part of our master plan highways, but we've never been able to pay for it. And Virginia figured out how to pay for it better than the developers paid for it, who happily paid for it. So I can tell you how we got here, and I know what the way out is, but we've got to do something. If we keep doing what we're doing now, we're not going to go anywhere. All the work we're doing in life sciences is great. We've got some special attractions there because of NIH and FDA and some of the other things. But we don't have special things for other things. We have to compete flat up on, this is a good place for my business or not, can my workers get there or not? That's where we've got to compete.
My question's a bit different. I'm wondering how we're doing about removing lead from the water fountains in schools and the town extension rate based from that, and are we on top of that?
We got on top of lead back when I was on the council. The school system said about changing their water fountains and cleaning up what they were doing. I think they've continued to do that. Now that you have water fountains that allow you to use fill bottles rather than drinking out of the water fountain. But I think we got on top of that, at least on the school system early. Everything else, it's still there's no mandate that they have to test every pipe to eliminate all the lead pipes. There's probably still lead in the county, doesn't get all in the area. So.
Thank you. I'm here to speak about the elderly, the seniors throughout the county. I thought this was a meeting about the seniors. I didn't hear anything directed for the seniors to help for the seniors. I am a disabled veteran household, and we have experienced a lot of hardships throughout our community. And so I'm here on behalf of Housing Justice Montgomery and many seniors that have a lot of issues with Montgomery County not helping seniors. So I want to ask, what programs are we going to have and implicate for the seniors? A lot of seniors are in housing that are having issues with funding, predatory lending practices, and with the builders. Also, a lot of seniors are in rehabilitation centers, and they are bound there, and the county is putting all this money into these rehabs. The seniors want to live in independent living. So how are we going to assist the seniors? The Bible says, stand up for the seniors and the elderly and help and fight for the poor. So I want to know, how can we, as a county, come together to hear the voices in a humble cry of the seniors in this county? Thank you.
So just to start with the beginning, I wasn't coming here to present on seniors. I was here to hear from people, which is why we set this meeting apart from the other communities, because we knew this is where we need to hear from seniors. So that's why we started like that. We've got a major housing issue in this county in terms of affordability. I can't provide affordable housing for people regardless of their income at the scale we need to build it. There are 50,000 households with less than $50,000 don't qualify for MPDUs or any other kind of subsidized housing. Every once in a while, when we have leverage with the developer, we're able to get a higher level of affordability, deeper level of affordability. So we've got projects where we can get down to 30% of area median income, which is a much lower area median income, but we don't have the capacity to do that on every project. The county's put in, the last 3 years, every year has been a record spending on affordable housing investment. We continue to build senior projects in the county, but the county doesn't build them. The county provides money to private sector builders who are building them. So we're still actively engaged in that. We work with HSC, but we also work with other partners because HSC's sole mission is not senior housing either. So we build as much as we can build as people bring us projects to build it. We've done major renovations on buildings so that they don't wind up having to be condemned to shut down. We spent $67 million last year buying a building off of Georgia Avenue, and we were then able to sell to a nonprofit. What we tried to do is to leverage our buying, getting into a deal before it's closed with the private sector, and being able to buy it and then leverage it before sale to nonprofits. And we work with nonprofits to deal with senior housing. There's also deal with flat out affordable housing. So we're going to continue to do that and keep putting money in there. Last year, we had extra reserves. I pulled over $50 million out of the reserves and set that aside for more targeted housing. We've got programs to help people stay in their house. There are groups out there that we fund that help seniors with repairs so that they don't have to lose their house. We know that it becomes challenging if you feel like you can't change the light bulb in your house. You may decide you don't want to stay in that house anymore. You feel like you can't maintain it. So we support programs that help seniors with maintenance on their houses. Do we do everything we should do, or that we should do? Probably not. Do everything we can do. We're running out of money. I have everything else in that budget I have to fund, and there is not enough money without raising taxes, which the council doesn't want to do. So if you're not going to raise taxes, you're kind of stuck in this box of where your revenues and how much do you put out there. Schools obviously the largest investment. We also put a lot of money into early childhood education, so these kids have a chance of being successful when they go to school. So those are things that compete. But I think, we do have programs in the areas that you're talking about. And if you wanted to talk about specifically what things, I could set up a meeting with you, right? I think about, is my group, the aging back here?
Yeah,
Yes.
I love that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, there it goes. Yes, so I am Patrice McGee, and I serve as the Chief of Aging and Disability Services within the Department of Health and Human Services, which is the service area that provides resources to older adults here in the county. We do administer all of the federal and state mandated programs for persons age 60 and older to help them do exactly what you mentioned as age in place. So we do have subsidy programs that assist, such as our senior living subsidy, our adult foster care program that provides subsidies to older adults to help them age in place in the least restrictive and safe environments. So there are eligibility requirements for these programs. Those are just a few that we administer, but we also, through our Aging and Disability Resource Unit, we get individuals connected to additional resources for their individual needs. And that phone number is 240-777-3000. Again, that is 240-777-3000. That is our Maryland access point where we get older adults connected to a vast amount of resources here in the county. And I'll be happy to remain afterwards and speak one-on-one, talk about individual specific cases going forward. And we do have a resource table in the back. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive. Good afternoon. I'm James Spears. I'm the Director of the Department of Health and Human Services. We do have care coordination for our service, our family members under the direction of and support by the County Executive. We have veterans, our Commissioner on Veterans Affairs, I should say. So there are a lot of resources, Mr. County Executive. I just, I gave, I didn't get your name, ma'am, but I just gave Ms. Leslie my card to follow up so that we can have conversation along with Dr. McGee around care coordination. These are the services and support mechanisms that we have at the Department of Health and Human Services. And that's why we attend these budget forums, because in addition to the county executive requesting information to help better inform the budget, as in the county, the programs and the services that we support with the county executive are here for you. So that's why it's very important to attend these forums. So we have information, as Dr. McGee said, we have information tables in the back. But if you have any questions, we have staff from various departments here. We have Director Munger from the Environmental Protection Agency And so he's here to ask questions because there are other resources. So please ask. Thank you again, Mr. County Attorney.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming here, Mr. Eldridge. I got my sample ballot recently, and I noticed that there's a proposition about term limits on it. I'm a longtime resident. I thought we voted on term limits already years ago. So my question is, what have the current term limits expired, or who is behind the new term limit proposal?
Thank you. So, it's my usual group of friends. Look, myself and the council members, we all have 3 terms. That's our limit. And that came from a referendum a few years ago. So the last council was the last one that had term limits imposed on. I've got 3-term limit. I technically can run for 1 more term 2 years from now in the 26 election. The bill comes, or the referendum comes from Republican, led by the Republican. I beat something like 74% to 23% in the last election. And they probably figured they can't beat me. So the best solution is to make sure I can't run again. And they were out telling people that we need term limits, actually like term limits. They didn't tell people that the executive had 3 term limits. They actually said there weren't a term limits. The other thing, this is all being financed by my second favorite people, which is the developers. And the developers, I've been through 2+ elections. In the 2 elections I was in, over $20 million was spent to beat me, all funded by the development community. So they had the same conclusion the Republicans did. You can keep me from running again, and you don't have to worry about losing the election. And I think they decided you'd rather make 2 years and beat me, which I don't think they would be able to do. The easiest thing is to get me out of office under the terms. So that's where it's coming from. It has nothing to do with good government. I'll say I wouldn't wish this on anybody. I've told the papers and I've told any public meeting that it's very hard for your county executive to govern over 2 years. When you come in, nobody commits to be in your cabinet until they know you won an election. So you win an election in November, then you got to put your cast up in the cabinet again for December. It's very hard to do that. People don't want to say them to be part of the new cabinet if they don't know you. People don't know it's called question A. It's on the back of the ballot. The Democratic Party took a position against it as well. I'm going to start speaking.
Okay, my question You're basically telling us that the district in Northern Virginia outsmarted us. And, and you want tax restructuring, but I'm not sure exactly what we need to do that. What are the steps that need to be taken to do that?
So there are two ways, well, there are two ways that lead to something we have to do no matter which path we take. The easiest thing to do is to do what they did in Virginia, where you pick your transportation corridor. Say if you're gonna run bus rapid transit down George Avenue, you take a half mile near the line side of it, and you draw in all of the commercial property and leave out all the residential property. That's simple. In Loudoun County, but also when we did the special taxing district in White Flint, because we didn't have authority to have a different tax rate for residential and commercial property, we drew these crazy maps that drew out all of the existing residential property in White Flint and only left in what was new or what was going to get redeveloped. We can do it either way. That one has more challenges than just saying, here's a half mile, you're either in it or you're out based on your commercial or residential. Once we do that, we've got to set a rate. And so we've got to determine how much you think we're going to be letting go in bonds, since you're not going to build every project at the same time. You know, the full scope of all the projects we have phased in over some, several years, it will all also terminate, separately moving forward. And the rate is set because it's based on a bond payment, so you don't have to worry about it going up. Every time the developer builds more, it reduces the actual payment they have to make, because the more taxable property you bring into the system, the more you're sharing the taxes over more people, it reduces the amount that any one owner has to pay. It is actually cheaper for developers to do this than to pay the impact taxes we have now, because the impact taxes are millions of dollars. This is going to be a small tax shared by all the commercial property in the area, so it's beneficial to them and it'll get them unstuck. So those are the things we have to do. It's not rocket science, but it can be done.
Is that action by the county council that's required?
Mhm. Right. And I've tried to get the council to talk about this now for a few years, and so far I have not gotten very far. However, with no money from the state, it's kind of like either we do this or, we're really in trouble. And I serve on the Maryland Association of Counties, and all the counties were in one group together. And even the Republicans on that board are supporting it, because everybody realized when the governor said last year that there was no money for transportation, everybody realized that it was us trying to build an ambitious project or somebody who just wants to do a small, bridge repair, or wants to build, things that aren't billions of dollars for maybe tens of millions. None of them can do anything. And so everybody realized without the state, everybody's dead in the water. And if you want to fall behind the jurisdiction next to you, be dead in the water on transportation, you're pretty much going to wind up the place that gets bypassed. So there's a lot more interest in it now.
Yeah, I have several questions. Last week, we had 6 council candidates came to introduce themselves to us. Who in the council is resisting you and looking at restructuring the property taxes so that you develop a property tax for commercial development, as all the other counties have? Who's fighting you on that of the
Most so far.
Yeah.
Nobody's really come over and said, there are a couple of people who are asking me questions now, which I think is progress. I think even the people in the business community who are realizing this is actually good for them. I'm sure that other people in the business community realizing it's good for them to get the council votes.
Well, you're giving me something to do as far as calling their offices. All right, the second question is, both the state and the county, to protect county taxpayers and state taxpayers, have imposed on communities like ours, Leisure World, that we every 5 years do a reserve study on all of our property for purposes of making sure that we're financing for the life term of equipment, building, facing, et cetera. The National Fire Marshals Association and the county last year decided that because certain people that were deaf could not hear the
Smoke alarm?
yes, in our particular condos, imposed a new requirement. And we had to install noisemakers in every bedroom. In my community, we spent $623,000 that we didn't have money for. So I look at that gap that you showed on your property, and I'm wondering why the county doesn't have a reserve for structures so that you're not tied to most favorable bond market conditions when you need to replace the building, but you've actually got a fund to repair or replace equipment that's died.
I've asked that question, but the problem is that the size that fund would have to be to cover everything. And it would be an enormous sinking fund. It's the same problem that the HOAs are running into, is putting enough money to replace your HVAC systems or your plumbing is a big lift. So almost nobody is fully funded. And we would not be able to fund for private buildings in the county. We try to do it for our own stuff. So you have reserves. When I was on, target's been 10%. We didn't make the target 10% reserves until my second year in office. We'd never gotten to 10%. We ended last year at 17%. But we were able to go into it because we didn't have to keep it at 17. We probably took money out, I took 50 million out and put it into affordable housing. So we were able to take money out of it and buy things that were one-time expenses that we would not normally have room for in the budget. But we're not putting away a lot of money for reserves for our buildings. My executive office building is covered.
All right, and then my last question, quickly, on the impact fee. I come from a community that charged development 10% of their investments that went into an impact fee fund, paid for water, fire, police, and schools. What's the distribution of our impact fee?
So because it's so low, it doesn't even go to the jurisdiction that it came from. So if the developer paid $10 million in an impact fee, it doesn't even go back necessarily to Bethesda. And was over the years, councils repeatedly lowered the amount of the impact fee, so we're able to buy less and less. They limited it on anybody building on the metro, even when they were actually building on the metro. I thought they were going to make it more expensive to build on metro tracks. There are things you have to do. I got that. But they extended it to the buildings that are being built on this flood development that are nowhere near the metro. In fact, they have no added expense because they're on the metro, but they got tax credit. So we've reduced the fees on developers since I was on the council with Maryland Fraser. After Maryland Fraser, the balance on the council changed. And it started reversing policies in terms of letting developers pay less, getting rid of the traffic studies, because traffic studies are inconvenient, getting rid of school over traffic studies, or reducing the school over traffic studies, so you don't have to pay as much to provide new classrooms for students. Every time they do that, it pushes the burden on the taxpayers. There's no other way to do it. You're going to build the schools. So if you're getting less from the development side, the only place you're going to get it from is out of the residential side. I would like to push back the opposite direction.
If we're so kind to developers, why did Amazon go to Virginia?
We have bid Virginia. The governor put more money on the table, Virginia put on the table, but they had something that Amazon wanted talent. So Virginia put on, I think it was UVA or whatever, this, one of the big schools, and also George Mason, basically said, well, we will move and provide the talent that you will need. Maryland outbid them on dollars, but Maryland did not try to compete with the talent.
We have the
space.
talent.
We did, but you had, if you put a proposal to somebody, you have to say, I'll make sure there's a college, you know, they're building actual buildings for their university system. Next thing.
We didn't want it. We didn't want it bad enough.
Well, the government didn't get it. Like, I think they just miscalculated, thought you could just buy it. You couldn't just buy it.
I'm sorry, but the folks at home couldn't hear what you were saying, so,
Oh, I was,
but that's okay. It's
Don't
fine.
worry about it.
My question is about environment. I'm extremely happy that you started a new program collecting compostables in a few spots in Montgomery County. Leisure does not use any county services for collecting garbage. But I was wondering whether you could provide us with one of those trucks that can collect compostables once a week, so that, you know, there are 8,000 plus residents in this community, and we could reduce a lot of the compostables that are going into the dumps.
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that, but John's back there. We can ponder that. Composting is going to be mandatory in Montgomery County, all of Montgomery County. We are taking the food waste out of the incinerator because it has use to us, has economic value to us. So we're looking at what we can do to get the economic value out of the food waste. And we're looking at other things that we dispose of and figuring out how can we get more economic value. It's simple things like that. It's expensive and we don't get a lot of money for our glass. If I crush glass and I sell it as a powder, or as I sell it as chunks, it can actually be used by the cement and the tar industry for road projects that decarbonizes concrete. So it's an approved way of reducing the emissions that concrete has. So we're looking at what we can do in a variety of ways to try to get money and, you know, out of the things that people waste. Your food will wind up in more facilities.
That would be great. I have one more question. We have a few hundred units, or even more than that, on a master meter. And we would like to get individual meters, and the cost involved is a little too much for the individual mutuals to afford. Will there be a way to support or give some financial support to our endeavor? Thank you.
We haven't done that yet. And all the meter conversions have been done by the private sector and passed on to the tenants, as you know. So I don't know if the county's gonna be able to go in and do that, but it's a fair question. I don't know, would you think you would save energy doing that?
I'm sorry?
Would you save energy doing that?
Yes, we certainly will save quite a lot of energy, because right now people are just turning the heat on or air conditioning on and leave the windows open because fresh air is coming. It's much better. But if you are paying for it, you definitely will close the windows and turn down.
Do you know how much it is? Did they say how much it was?
How much I have
Per
to
meter?
study on that, I have no idea.
Okay.
But we will save quite a bit.
I can try to find it.
Thank you.
Sort of piggybacking on the earlier question regarding partnerships with the county. My name is Felicia Brennan, by the way, and I've actually met with your CEO, myself and Kimball, to talk about potential partnerships with the county related to transportation. I know you said there's no money, but it goes back to your slide with regards to fiscal challenges, which we're sort of experiencing here at Ledgeville as it relates to transportation. You may be aware of the fact that we recently right-sized our fleet with regards to wheelchair accessible buses. The state provided us some funds as well as the cost. And so one of the grants that we went after to do a complete street project needed sponsorship by MCDOT, and we weren't able to get that. So that's what I mean by that partnership with the county. So we certainly could use your sponsorship support to move forward with some of the projects.
Did you just need sponsorship?
I'm sorry?
Did you just need sponsorship?
We needed in that particular area, we did, and also to be able potentially have the county include us in the transportation planning process. That would be another. I know. Well, we can talk offline about all of these. Stormwater management and some of those kinds of things. So just since these beautiful lady brought up that partnership or, relationship with the county.
We should be able to.
We've been siloed for so many years here. We could certainly use some more conversations with you about how to collectively. So just wanted to bring.
And you've already talked with.
We've talked with the CEO. He informed me you'd be here today. I didn't want to ambush you with this conversation. Yeah. Would love to talk to you.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Online question?
Yeah. Mr. County Executive, we have a couple questions from the Wheaton Community Center who are watching online. First question is from a woman by the name of Cheryl Brown. She says, it is an unfortunate time to reduce programs as the number of seniors grow daily. 3 programs that have been key to my physical and mental health and well-being include Tai Chi, Senior Villages, Explorers Monday Hike. She says she also volunteers at Brookside Gardens. Many seniors that she has met have relocated here to be near their kids or grandkids, leaving social peers behind. Research shows isolation can lead to poor outcomes in health for seniors. The county has provided many opportunities and most are supported by senior volunteers. She says, I want to express appreciation for all that contribute to programming and to urge you to continue senior offerings to lift the burden on the sandwich generation, healthcare systems, and for the health of an aging population.
So we've tried to prioritize that stuff. We'll continue to try to prioritize it. I'm not looking to cut services. Whatever we wind up doing is dictated by how much money we bring in. But I'm not starting out with an assumption I want to reduce your programming.
Another question from Wheaton includes from Helen Liu. She says, I am a retired federal, state, and local government executive. Since retiring in 2017, I've actively participated in a variety of senior wellness programs and activities supported by Montgomery County government. These programs and activities enhanced my physical and mental wellness. My health and well-being have benefited tremendously by the above programs and activities. For example, my balance and bone density have improved, my blood pressure and sugar level are under control, and I'm less stressed. For example, as a volunteer instructor of a bone builder class of 20 participants, she says, I love seeing the friendships develop in the classes and activities. I have participated as a student. I recognize that these programs compete with each other for limited funds allocated to the older adult population. It is very important to my community and me that the North Potomac Senior Center receive adequate funding to support its programs and activities. I strongly ask that you increase the county funds allocated to the older adult population, which is ever growing. The classes offered at the North Potomac Senior Center and Potomac Community Center are very popular with seniors and fill up quickly. Thank you for your time and consideration for more funds for the older adult population.
Thank you.
Hi. Well, the first thing I want to say is that I'm very grateful to live in Montgomery County. People say to me, why the hell do you live there? It's so expensive. I go, yeah, but you get what you pay for. So I, on the whole, feel like the county government has done a really good job in trying to support not just seniors, but just me when I wasn't a senior as well. So that was the first thing. The second thing I wanted to return to the energy standards question. I'm on the homeowners association of one of our garden apartment developments, which is about 180 people. And what we find is it's going to be physically virtually impossible to meet those mandates. We don't have the space to put the equipment. If we had the money to buy the equipment and install it, we did get one quote that just to put a meter into each apartment would cost over $600 per apartment. And then you had your annual monitoring, your monthly monitoring, reporting to the blah, blah. So it's where we would appreciate help from the county is getting some assistance with working around that, because we aren't the only people with 50-plus-year-old buildings that were this kind of energy use, et cetera, was not even considered. So yay, doing a great job. These energy systems are a really big problem. Thank you.
So, I mean, the optimistic part will tell you that the cost of some of these systems are coming down. You're not being required to do this tomorrow. This would be a disaster if you had to do it tomorrow, and those people would struggle to pay for it. But there is a change in the technology and change in pricing. I think people would benefit for. The county also has some money, right, John?
Yeah, and I. Chuck?
John Mongoose, the director of the environmentals.
Hey there. Thanks so much for your question. I understand Leisure World's also recently sent a letter to the county on this issue, so we'll be following up with you with more information about options. And an important part of this process when we're talking about building efficiency is also understanding where buildings currently are. So we just released a new tool that's makes available to all buildings. An evaluation and scorecard essentially of current building energy efficiency, excuse me. So there, for all buildings that are a part of this program countywide, all buildings can now see exactly what your currently energy performance is based on your current energy usage. So just to say that we're in receipt of this letter and in the process of preparing our response for you, and I can follow up with you after the fact in the back with more information. So thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. So appreciate it. My name is Emily Vickers, and I liked a lot of what Wheaton and Poolsville and some of these other senior centers are asking for help. I am representing Holiday Park Senior Center. We have between 500, 600 members, and we are growing, not rapidly, but continuously. And I just found out from the directors that some of the funds are being cut for 2025 in terms of the activities. So one of the ways they're trying to work around it is combining a couple of the activities to make it one, which is not making folks necessarily very happy. So if we want to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month, we want it to be Hispanic Heritage Month. We don't want it combined with something else. So the question is, how do we get more funding specifically for activities? Right now, I'm talking about Holiday Park, but that's what I'm representing.
Your problem is global. The only way to get more money is to raise more money. So either we have to collect more from growth in, some businesses, or you have to raise taxes. I mean, there's no magical way to get money. I don't have a print shop. It would be illegal. So I can't tell you that what we're going to do, but we've asked departments because of the condition of the state and the limitation of our increases are going to be. We asked departments to prepare budgets with different levels of cuts. We don't know if we're going to have to take all the cuts. We get a big distribution from the state in November, and we usually wait until January, we have a better idea of how much money we can have. It's very hard for us because you're making a budget without knowing how much money you have. We've asked the school system to give us their budget by December, because typically they give us their budget after our budget is already done. And so they're asking for money that we've already put other places. So we've tried to see, we've got to do this in the same time frame we're doing it. I'm hopeful that, our revenues aren't as bad as the state. They don't look like they are. and we'll try to figure out how much we can fund. And, you know, not anxious going into this, the pet things, and we'll try to find things that are the least painful cuts before we do things that are problematic to people. But I just wanted to be realistic. I can't honestly tell you right now that I don't have enough money to do things in the back with no growth, or if I'm gonna have to trim stuff, or if we'll be able to add stuff. We're not in the position to know that right now.
So when you say raise funds, does that mean we as members with the directors can raise funds?
In what sense?
I'm sorry. I don't know, possibly doing some type of an event where it's bringing people in,
And you're gonna generate.
like a
I
fundraiser.
would never stop anybody from raising revenue.
I got you.
Anything you can do to supplement your programs would be helpful. If it doesn't show up in the budget as county money, and you've got sources of other funding, that's a little different story.
Mr. Executive, if I could interject, my office, Regional Services, we have very small grants for activities like you spoke about, Hispanic Heritage Month, LGBTQ Month, et cetera, or other just basic community activities, like very small grants. They go up to $1,000. And there's an application process. I gave you my card and I could help you with that. You're welcome.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you for having this forum. I would also like to say that I think Montgomery County is a fabulous place to live. And there are two concerns. One may be federal, but with the population across the United States aging, there, you know, the things that are not covered by Medicare, like vision, hearing, right? These are things that the elderly population, when they function better and they are socially more involved and healthy, right? These two things. So just to put that into consideration also, that other people have said. But the thing that is, I really have a question about is sort of the community planning. Because I live in an area in which there is single family homes and there's also apartment buildings. So it's my understanding that they want to take away some of the communal spaces, the park, a very local shopping mall use, right, community, and erect tall buildings. So where would one go to speak about housing which is, you know, healthy and affordable and respects the environment and community?
So you should, it's too late to talk to the planning board because they sent this stuff over to the council, so you have to talk to the council. It's a serious problem because on the front, they call this sustainable housing. On the front of their program, where they describe, it's kind of like their cover page that you get there, it says, is this about affordable housing? They say, no, this is about market rate housing. So here you got a county with major needs in affordable housing. And they decided they're going to focus on market rate housing. And they know full well that if somebody goes into a neighborhood, say $1 million neighborhood, wants to build a duplex or a triplex or a quad, they're going to build $2, $3, or $4 million units on that property. That's what the real estate agents tell them they're going to do. You'd be an idiot if you were allowed to build in $1 million neighborhood houses for $500,000. Nobody is going to do that. And they're just like in denial of what the real need is in this county. They're obsessed. They believe there's this thing called missing middle, whatever that is. It's a different housing type. They think people aren't moving here because there aren't triplexes and quads. I'm not sure that's true. I don't actually believe that's true. But if they wanted to, they could actually change the master plans they've already done that haven't been built and change them before they go into the neighborhoods. And they seem intent in going into the neighborhoods. 82% of single-family homes in Montgomery County are being rezoned for this. People are not happy, pretty much anywhere. And they don't take into account traffic. They don't take into account stormwater. They don't take into account schools. they don't take anything into account that's going to have an impact on the cost side of this equation.
Could I add one other thing
Yeah.
to that? That's like, because, I grew up in New York City in a 12-story building that was built before 1910, okay? And when I was living in it, like through the 60s, the building did not have any major difficulties. I'm now living in a building in like 1952, and it's considered old. What is the thinking around saying that you have a really good building because it is a good structurally sound, great building, to spending the money for the maintenance as opposed to rebuilding somewhere else?
You raise a good issue. The environmentalists raise this issue a lot. If you got an older structurally sound brick building, block building, you should probably figure out how you can retain the building. And I've seen people also leave the building structure intact, but scrape the floors and then reconfigure the interior of the building. But I don't think there's need to tear everything down. I don't think it's good to tear everything down. And I would prefer people to figure out, because it's not going to stay affordable. I mean, the more you do that you don't need to do, the less affordable the unit's going to be. I think they know what they're doing. I just don't think they actually know what they're doing in the grand sense of things.
Mr. Executive, thank you for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I only had one question, but you just raised something that gave me a second question. I was wondering, given the animosity between developers and taxes, and how there was a good result south of the river, but not so good here, how do you see working that to our advantage, making it come full circle? Because if they understood in Virginia that this is a win-win for everybody, what can you do to bring them back? So that's question one, and you can fold this in, because the second question is, you just mentioned that magic middle. How are you gonna fix it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
First place.
Got 2 minutes.
The missing middle was a phrase invented by a developer in California. And none of us actually understands what that means. But, if it's true that I don't have missing middle housing, that means parking planning has absolutely failed in the zoning they did. Because there are over 87,000 units that could be built tomorrow in Montgomery County. They're already in the master plans. All you've got to do is build what you're allowed to build in the master plan. And if they can't build the missing middle because of what they zoned those areas for, maybe they ought to go back and look at that before they go into people's neighborhoods. I've begun to wonder why the fascination with the communities that people already live in when you've got, large areas of the county, 300 acres in one part of the East County. There are other large swaths where they could build this kind of housing if they think this is so important. But so it's just curious to me why they're not interested in doing that. As far as the developers go, Virginia offers a lot of things, and they may have made a bet a while ago that it's better to take advantage of the railroad and the proximity to DC and not focus on Montgomery County for commercial development. It may also be that our refusal to build transportation led them to conclude that we were never seriously going to deal with the one problem that everybody told us we needed to deal with. So I'm trying to deal with the transportation side. We're trying to build up our life sciences industry, but it is the biggest and most growable part of our economy. And it can go in more than one place. It doesn't need to be, as it's been in the past, in a kind of like in the Shady Grove Life Sciences, you can actually do this more urbanly. We're looking in White Flint, where we negotiated an agreement with Metro to develop the 16 acres around the White Flint Metro and focus it on life sciences development. If we can do that there and spread it down the pike, we can keep it urban rather than having to send it off into, the Shady Grove area. So there are things we can do, but we've got to be intentional. We've tried to be very deliberate about where we make investments and what projects we try to support. And one thing I will not do is I will not bring in jobs that are like minimum wage. I have no interest in bringing in more jobs so people can't afford to live here. That's not good for us.
Mr. County Executive, we have a few more questions coming in from the Wheaton Community Center. This one says, thank you for the talk. Regarding the property tax, community members with fixed and low income, retired seniors, how can these tax be exempt in these cases? Who can they follow up with? And thank you.
The taxes I'm talking about were not on residents. I'm not looking to raise residential property taxes. But residents can get help because there are tax programs in the county for seniors and for low income seniors. So if you're in a house and you're old enough and your income's low enough, you can get tax credits.
Another question from Wheaton. We really appreciate the health and wellness programs and active senior classes. Since the programs are integral to improving the health of the seniors and community, we also appreciate more considerations, increase in the budget for programs in the health of the mind and body. For example, in Wheaton, there are a lot of members and few spots for classes. Can some classes be done outdoors?
That you'd have to ask the rec department.
Another question from Wheaton says, good afternoon. There are 3 giant apartment complexes that are being built in Montgomery County, one on Georgia Avenue near the Metro, one on Randolph Road, and finally one near Tech Road. How many will go to low income and seniors? And that's from Karen Jackson Knight.
So generally, if it's a standard development, then it's done by the developer without a partnership of the county. We either get 12.5 or 15% affordable, but it's only affordable to people making around 70,000 a year. So it leaves out a whole bunch of people. And 12.5 and 15% means out of 100 units, you get between 13 and 15 units, which does not deal with the scope of the problem. When the county does developments, we've been getting 30%. We were offered a development in Pike and Rose, which is a really major area, where the developer would give us 50% of 1,000 units. We're not going to give it to us, we're going to have to buy it, but we're getting the opportunity to buy affordable units up there. So when we do things, we try to drive much higher percentages of affordability, not only number of units, but deeper. We have a project on the intersection of Randolph Road and Bushy Drive. It's 195 units. All the units are affordable, and that they range from 30 to 80% of AMIs, and there's even some home ownership in there. So when we have our hands in it, we get more units. When it's the private sector, there's a limit on what we get. I'm introducing legislation that will require a much higher percentage of affordable units. People who aren't even poor can't afford to live here. When you build apartments in Bethesda and you build nothing but high rises, you've rolled out, parents say, where's my kid going to live? I need a place for my kids. You can build high rises to your blue in the face. Your kid's not getting an apartment there. New high rises in Bethesda, 3 bedrooms are around $7,000. 2 bedrooms are $4,000. 1 bedrooms are typically north of $2,500. Those aren't the college grad, taking a job, and even what used to be a good job. And I think I lived on like $1.10 an hour when I rented my first apartment, which is, all of us are shaking our heads because those days never be back again. But, we need to provide a wider range of houses, and we're not going to get what we don't require. Nobody's going to do this because they want to. They'll do it because it's required to do.
Thank you for coming here and taking our questions. I've grown up in Montgomery County. Is it on? Oh, okay. I've been in Montgomery County since 1954. That's a long time. And mainly in the eastern part of the county. I haven't heard you talk too much about development. You just said something about Randolph Road and Bushy Drive. I know that area. But I haven't heard you talk too much about that part of the county. When I was growing up, that was considered the orphan part of the county. it was neglected in terms of development and all sorts of things. So I hope that now there's going to be more attention paid to that part of the county.
I can tell you, all the things we're doing in that part of the county. The first East County campus for Montgomery College is going into the White Oak area. We're working with the developer who bought the 300 acres of the Viva White Oak, they called it. We're working with them on a major development that we're negotiating what tax structure we're going to use to make sure we can build the infrastructure, but also make sure he doesn't get saddled with something with lots of heavy upfront costs and that could hamper the project. The Burtonsville Shopping Center was empty and dead when I came into office. It is now revitalized. They've got a grocery store. It is open. We've got a developer that's supposed to build 2 apartment buildings up there. The shopping center at Town Center on 29 has a grocery store that's about to open and a whole new center that's about to open. The BRT is on 29 in a kind of early form, but it's going to get elevated to what it should be. It should not be running in mixed traffic. So we're going to make sure it gets built so it functions the way it's supposed to be built. After we built, just cut the ribbon, broke the ground on a major apartment development at New Hampshire Avenue at the Beltway. This is 100% green. This is it's affordable, largely affordable, and it's 100% green. First time anybody's done that. And we're doing that at New Hampshire Avenue at the Beltway. So there's more going on now in the East County than was going on for the last 20 years in the East County. We're very deliberate about it, not leaving that part behind. That's why I wanted the college over there. So those kids could go to the high schools there and then also attend community college like they're able to do in other parts of Montgomery County. So we're being very purposeful about what we do.
Any more questions or comments on the executive? As we said, our media briefing, going once, going twice. All right.
Yeah, thank you all.